Hey guys, Mozo Negron Tech here, and today I'm bringing you my starter build for 1.1, and that's actually going to be GIGAHAMMERS Void, pure Void Knight, no Paladin shenanigans, just pure Void Knight goodness with Void Hammers focusing on Disintegrating Aura. Now, why play this? Last patch, and really in the past, it was really just a hipster thing, but we've actually got a crazy good buff, and everything about my last build still applies. We just got stronger. The passives didn't change much besides Forge Guard, but if we actually look at the patch notes, what's going to happen is that we got mana cost deduction, which is going to make our quality of life much better in spamming Hammer Throw, which means that we can actually invest a little bit more into attack speed while having mana issues. Additionally, look at that base damage and damage effectiveness increase. Now, my last build was more primarily focused on scaling Doom, Future Strike, Disintegrating Aura, and Time Rot. Now, Future Strike, Time Rot had stacks, Doom had stacks too, so you were kind of hard capped on your dot damage, but at least in those regards, my last version of the build, you were just scaling everything dot, right? Because the base damage and damage effectiveness wasn't that good, now, with the base damage buff and pretty much a 75% effective damage increase when it comes to damage effectiveness, that's really big, because all of a sudden, anything that increases hammer throw damage plus damage to throwing attacks, that gets added to the Disintegrating Aura base damage, and then now it's even more effective. What that really means is that it actually might be worth it to go with affixes that are much more important, that are targeting plus damage to hammer throw. So that's a big deal. I actually think not focusing so much on the dot and focusing more on pure void damage effectiveness, flat added damage when it comes to spells, because I think Smite is actually the way to go now with hammer throws, especially with the idle buffs. And I just think it might be better, especially since all the dot stuff was hard capped, and it's just really going to be smooth on cycle start to not have to worry about idols and not have to worry about getting the Julia's ring for Doom, or really, get everything with the dots going. I think this is actually going to be a better starter, and then maybe late end game you can go into like self-cast Smite, but at least early on I think this is going to be the way to go. The base damage is going to be great, and then additionally we got 28% more damage than before with the less skill investment. What does that mean? When we go back to our build and we go to hammer throw, we can actually see that we only have 4 points now, so we still get more damage and we get 2 free points. We can go more into the more damage, we can go. And now, one thing about this is that there is a Reddit post, if you look it up, and somebody from the last Epoch team, I think Eric something, actually responded. This is not a sub-skill of hammer throw. Some of these nodes, I don't remember which ones, it might be weighted hammers actually, they still actually affect the damage, right? And even if it doesn't, you can just go more attack speed, and then we get increased damage with zeal stacks. We could also go orbit, which makes it, maybe a little bit more cooler, that more Diablo-styled hammered in. Right now, we still mandatory going to go volatile reversal and anomaly. I am dropping abyssal echoes. Just ignore that right there. That'll be smite. Well, not smite. That could be your gap closer, right? And we're going to go smite. Now, the thing is with smite is that it becomes void and it gets vitality scaling too, right? And hit damage versus ignited enemies is actually changed to versus slow. So anything dependent on ignite is really dependent on slow as a void knight. So we get 100% more multiplier here. We get another sacrifice health cost reduction and 250% more multiplier here. We're also going to get a lot of leech as a void knight, so we offset the health consume. So it's really nice. It's more damage over here, blind, more survivability. So I think this is actually going to be the way to go. These idols, not these specific ones, but the Adorn or the 4x4, they did get buffed too as well. So that's really nice. We could probably just go 1 or 2. And because the passives that I'll talk about in a second here, we're going to more heavily invest in the attack speed. So let me go to Sentinel real quick, right? And before I go to Sentinel, well, let me talk about the passive. So pretty standard, but we're actually going to go 30 deep into Sentinel, right? The base spec. And why is that? Getting 30% increased attack speed is very huge. That is a huge multiplier, huge quality of life, and with the mana reduction, we should be able to sustain this very easily. Now, because we're going way more attack speed, we can actually invest a single point here, and even though we get the reduced attack speed, it doesn't exactly offset, but getting all this echo chance now, the base 10%, another 10% 20, another 10% 30, another 10% 40, All these hammers are going to overlap. The smites are going to repeat. It's going to be very, very, very good. The rest of the tree I haven't min-maxed yet too hard. I think I'm just going to go with it, you know, as I level up and get into monoliths. I'm not too sure, but everything's standard. We're going to go with, as a smite focus now too, we're going to go with smites to increase our damage instead of focusing purely on dots. And we just get the vitality scaling, which is very, very, very good. We're also going to get a massive amount of tankiness with vitality as well as damage. The flat shared spell void damage with the throwing damage, very good. Future Strike might drop out of this, maybe a little bit less points, maybe more, depending if I can reach the stacks and get all those at the... Well, it doesn't actually have max stacks, so the more attack speed, the more stacks you get, the harder it hits at that 2 seconds. So that's really, really, really good. I left 15 points here, and the reason why I did that is because some people... They might not want to play Devouring Orb, and they might want to go Holy Sigil. Now, the thing about Devouring Orb versus Holy Sigil, you get some quality of life. The damage is really not a factor. Increased speed, attack, cast, movement. The damage impact's not a big deal. Mana efficiency is good. But the big thing is going to be actually more void damage, void adapt. This is not going to be something that we're going to be able to take advantage of till later stages of our gear. But with Vitality scaling Smite now, getting another 10% more, it's hard to get more multipliers, right? So getting a free 10% more if we're able to get 90 Vitality, plus the increased mana regen as we're going to be attacking way faster, proccing more auras, proccing more smites. It's probably just going to be the way to go. I think the synergies are just too obvious and too good. And I think we're actually going to be a lot stronger besides just the patch no buffs, but just generally going this route is going to be better. Alright, so talking about the gear, idols, we probably go 2 or 3 Smite idols, and that should be enough, and then some Time Rot Chance just to make it a little bit of nice. This is all later game stuff. All this, just ignore, you know, as you level up and get to monoliths, you're going to get whatever exaltas you can. You're going to focus on your maxing out your resistances, getting health, block is good. Now, for the weapon I'll talk about last, the shield really is not endgame. You'll see a lot of increased void damage. That's very, very good. Increased throwing attack speed. But I want to put an emphasis that with the buffs to damage effectiveness, flat added throwing is going to be very, very good. Whenever you can get increased damage to void, that's going to be the best one because it'll help both our aura, our hammers, and it's going to help our smites as well, right? So the scepter is actually not going to be our endgame weapon. I'll talk about that now. I think the set item is still amazing. And as you're leveling up, if you get your hands on this and maybe the rest of the set, that'll carry you to 300 corruption. I've actually used this set and it's kind of nuts getting to 300 corruption. But then, you know, the dot stuff did cap. But with the buffs, we should be much better. I actually think going a sword and going... Where is it over here? I must have went over it. The one that gives local increased dot damage, right? So again, the dot is only going to help our Disintegrating Aura, but because the damage effectiveness is so much better, this might be very, very, very good. And the thing about going sword, whether it's crafted, exalted, or the set piece, is that when we look at our passive tree, this is why we're going to go so deep and get Blade Master over here to get all that attack speed. It helps offset this later node and Avatar of Regret. And it's just going to increase our DPS significantly, right? So that's a big, big deal. And attacking fast is really fun, and the quality of life is really nice. You shield rush and lunge fast. It's great. It's really, really, really great. So that's the one big change, is that probably don't go Scepter. Definitely probably go Skipmer here, or just stick with the set item. Where is it? Over here. The time Blade of the Forgotten Knight, still very, very, very good. The haste is nice. The attack speed is nice, and the void spell damage doesn't help aura, but it does help the smite. So not sure about really pushing, like maybe getting 500 plus corruption. You might be better off transitioning to just pure self-cast smite. That would be really, really good, especially with all the new unique smite items. But starting off with the patch notes, like this base damage increase, hammer throw is already insanely strong leveling up. Going this route, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so good. And just really on minimal gear, you should be able to get to 400 to 500 corruption. After that, I'm not sure. I do know monoliths changed a little bit, but that's that. And I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll put a link to the original video to kind of see the footage and the theory and everything that goes really into the depth. But it's a pretty simple build, you know. You just go hammer throw, you spec in a Disintegrating Aura, and you focus on void damage. That's really it. Later in the game, once you're able to get idols, then you can start going into Smite and worry about that. But it's a really, really fun build, really unique. Hopefully it's more popular this patch. Maybe some new uniques are going to buff it even more. We'll see. this is what I'll be starting with in an hour. It's 11 o'clock. I'll try to get this video out in the next half hour. Most of the Tech here. Have a good one, guys.